Krishna chastises the serpent Kaliya. Within the river Kalindi, Yamuna, was a lake inhabited by the serpent Kaliya, whose fiery poison constantly heated the water to a boil. The Acharyas explain that this lake was a little apart from the main current of the river. Even the vapors created by the poison were so toxic that birds flying overhead would fall down dead. The wind blowing over the deadly lake carried droplets of poisoned water to the shore, and thus all of the vegetation and creatures there had died. The Harivamsh further describes the Kalia lake as follows. The lake was quite wide, 8 miles at some points, and even the demigods could not cross over it. The water was very deep, and like the depth of the ocean, it could not be agitated. The lake was difficult to approach, for the shores were full of holes in which the serpents lived. All around the lakes was a fog created from the fire of serpent's poison, and this fire would burn anything that fell into the water. For a distance of 8 miles from the lake, the atmosphere was very unpleasant. Sanatan Goswami states that by utilizing the mystic power of Jal Stambh, making solid objects out of water, Kaliya had built his own city within the lake. Krishna knew that Kaliya had polluted the Yamuna by his powerful poison. Because he had descended from the spiritual world specifically to subdue the envious demons, Krishna climbed to the top of a Tal Kadam tree, which was the only tree that had remained alive because previously Garuna had placed nectar on it. Preparing himself for battle, Krishna tightened his belt, tied back his hair, and slapped his arms like a wrestler. When Krishna jumped into the lake, the serpent became extremely agitated and began breathing heavily, causing the water to become even more polluted. The force of the Lord's jump caused the bank of the lake to overflow up to a distance of 100 bows length. Krishna then supported in Kaliya's lake like a king of elephant, and while swimming about, he created loud splashing sounds. Upon hearing these sounds, Kaliya understood that someone had trespassed in his lake. Being unable to tolerate this, he immediately appeared in a challenging mood. Kaliya saw Krishna wearing yellow silk garment, and he appeared very delicate. He was beautifully smiling, and his lotus feet resembled the wall of a lotus flower. The Lord was playing fearlessly in the water. Despite Krishna's wonderful appearance, the envious Kaliya furiously bit him on the chest and then completely wrapped him within his coils. When the cowherd boys saw Krishna entangled in this way, they became highly alarmed. They had dedicated everything to Krishna, and so when they saw Krishna in Kaliya's clutches, their intelligence became deranged by the grief, lamentation, and fear, and thus they fell to the ground. The cows, bulls, and calves cried out piteously. Fixing their eyes upon Krishna, they stood completely motionless due to fear. Although ready to cry, they were too shocked to shed tears. In Vrindavan area, 3 types of omens announcing imminent danger were manifest: those on the earth, those in the sky, and those in the bodies of the living beings. Sridhar Swami says that the earth had tremors, meteors were falling in the sky, and in the bodies of creatures there was shivering as well as quivering in the left eye and other parts. Seeing the inauspicious omens, Nanda Maharaj and other cowherd men became anxious, for they knew that Krishna had gone to tend the cows that day without his elder brother Balram. Due to their unalloyed affection for Krishna, the cowherd men were unaware of his unparalleled prowess, and so they feared that the omens indicated that Krishna had been killed. Overwhelmed with grief, lamentation, and fear, all the residents of Vrindavan, including the children, women, and elderly persons, rushed out of the village with intention of finding Krishna. At this time Balram smiled and remained silent, because he understood the true position of his younger brother. By following the Krishna's footprints, which were marked with a lotus flower, barley corn, elephant goad, thunderbolt, and flag, the residents of Vrindavan hurried to the banks of Yamuna. It may be wonderful how the footprints of Krishna could still be visible, since he had gone along with innumerable boys and cows. Sanatan Goswami explains that the inhabitants of Vrindavan would carefully preserve his footprints as a great treasures, and thus no creature in Vrindavan would ever walk on them. As they approached the Kalia lake, the residents of Vrindavan could see Krishna in the dance, motionless within the coils of the black serpent. Then they saw that the cowherd boys had fallen unconscious upon the ground, while the animals stood on all sides crying out. Seeing this, Vrajvasis became anguished and confused. When the young gopis, whose minds were always absorbed in Krishna, saw that he was within the grips of the serpent, they remembered his loving friendship, his smiling glances, and his talks with them. Burning with a terrible sorrow, they saw the entire universe as vacant. Mother Yashoda wanted to enter the water, but she was forcibly restrained by the other elderly gopis. While crying profusely, these gopis stood still like corpses, taking turns in recounting Krishna's pastime to her. Lord Balram then saw that Nand Maharaj and the other cowherd men were preparing to enter the Kalia lake. Knowing Krishna's actual prowess, Balram restrained them, some physically, some by his words, and some by the potency of his smiling glance. Krishna remained in the coils of the serpent for about 2 hours, imitating the behavior of an ordinary human being. However, when he understood the acute distress of the inhabitants of Vrindavan, he broke free from the serpent's bondage. Being tormented by Krishna's expanding body, Kalia was forced to let him go. In great anger, Kalia raised his hoods while remaining stationary. The serpent breathed heavily. Poisonous fumes streamed from his nostrils, and his eyes blazed like fire. While staring at Krishna with a glance full of terrible poisonous fire, Kalia again and again licked his lips with his bifurcated tongues. But Krishna playfully circled around Kalia as Garuda would play with snake. In response, Kalia also moved around and looking for an opportunity to bite the Lord. Finally, Krishna's endless circling exhausted Kalia. Seizing the opportunity, Krishna quickly pushed down the serpent's foot with his hand and jumped upon them. As Lord Sri Krishna, the original master of all fine arts, began to dance on the Kalia's hoods, his lotus feet became reddened by the numerous jewels that were on the serpent's head. When the residents of heaven, the Gandharvas, Siddhas, Rishis, Charanas, and the wives of the demigods saw the Lord's wonderful demonstration of the art of dancing, they quickly came there. With great pleasure, they began to accompany the Lord's dancing by playing drums and offering prayers and songs. Kalia had 101 prominent heads, and as soon as one of them would not bow down, Krishna struck it forcefully with his lotus feet. As death approached, Kalia began wheeling around in extreme pain, while vomiting poison from his mouth and nostrils, thus reducing his sinful situation. While exuding poisonous waste from his eyes, Kalia would occasionally dare to raise one of his heads in anger. Krishna would then dance on that head to subdue it. And each time this happened, the demigods worshipped him with showers of flowers. Krishna's powerful dancing broke all of the Kalia's 1000 hoods. While profusely vomiting blood, the serpent finally recognized Krishna to be the eternal Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Narayan. Thus, within the mind, Kalia began to take shelter of the Lord. Kalia's wives were great devotees, and previously they had often advised Kalia to surrender to Krishna. Now, finding himself to be on the verge of death, Kalia remembered their good advice. Kalia's old archenemy was Garuna, the carrier of Vishnu, but now he realized that his opponent was thousands of times more powerful than Garuna, and thus could only be the Supreme Lord himself. When Kalia's wife saw how the serpent had become fatigued due to the Krishna's weight and his umbrella-like hoods had been shattered by the Lord's dancing, they felt very distressed with their clothing, ornaments and hair scattered. they approached Krishna. According to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the wives of Kaliya had become disgusted with him because of his demoniac nature. Thus they had been thinking, if this atheist is killed, let it be. We will become widows and engage ourselves in worshipping the Supreme Lord. But then, when they saw Kaliya's facial expressions, they could understand that he had become remorseful. Then they thought, how fortunate we are, our husband has become a Vaishnava. So now we must try to protect him. Placing their children in front of Kaliya's wives, in front, Kaliya's wives bowed down before the Lord, falling down flat upon the bank of the Yamuna. They offered their prayers. O Lord, your punishment of this envious serpent is undoubtedly just, and indeed it is your mercy, because it is meant for his purification. Is it that Kaliya performed some great religious activity in his past life so that now you are pleased with him? Otherwise, how is it possible that someone in the body of a serpent, which is the reward of sinful life, could be touched by the dust of your lotus feet? For this purpose, the goddess of fortune had performed great austerities for hundreds of years, giving up all other desires. We offer our obeisances unto you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You exist prior to this material creation, for you are its original cause. We offer our obeisances again and again. By going beyond the screen of material nature, one can approach you. By methodically studying the functioning of this material world, one must conclude that there is a Supreme Lord, and that he exhibits his illusory potency to bewilder those who do not surrender unto him. My Lord, all of the material bodies throughout the universe, those that are peaceful in goodness, those that are agitated in passion, and those that are foolish in ignorance, are all your creations. At least once a master should tolerate an offense committed by his child or subject. O Supreme Soul, you should therefore forgive our foolish husband, for he did not understand you as you are. O Lord, please be merciful. It is proper for saintly to feel compassion for women like us. This serpent is about to give up his life. Please give us back our husband, for he is our life and soul. Please tell us, your maid servants, whatever we should do. Certainly, there should be no fear for those who are ready to faithfully execute your order. Being thus petitioned by Nagpatnis, Krishna released Kaliya, who had fallen unconscious. Krishna soon regained his senses. Kaliya soon regained his senses, and while breathing loudly and painfully, he very submissively addressed the Lord. Our very birth as snake has made us envious, ignorant, and constantly angry. O my Lord, it is very difficult for persons to give up their conditioned nature, by which they identify with that which is unreal. O Lord, please arrange for us whatever you consider proper, whether it be mercy of punishment. Lord Krishna replied, Serpent, you cannot remain here any longer. Go back to the ocean at once, accompanied by your wives, children, relatives, and friends. Let this river be once again enjoyed by the human beings and cows. If someone remembers my command to you and narrates this pastime both morning and evening, he will become freed from fear of you. If one bathes at this place, he will become free from all sinful reactions. Out of fear of Garuda, you left Ramanaka island and came here to take shelter in this lake. But now that you are marked with my footprints, Garuda will no longer try to eat you. Kaliya joined his wives in worshipping Lord Krishna by offering him fine cloth, valuable ornaments, a large garland of lotus flowers, and variable scents. After doing this, Kaliya felt satisfied at heart. Then, taking the Lord's permission, Kaliya circumambulated him and offered obeisances, and then departed for his island within the sea. As soon as Kaliya left, the Yamuna was restored to its original condition, free from all poison, by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Actually, Kaliya and Garuda are originally related as brothers. According to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Kaliya had indicated to Krishna, if you ever have to go to a distant place, you should also think of me as your carrier. In the wink of an eye, I can travel hundreds of yojanas. Thus the Puranas mention that sometimes in the course of Krishna's eternal cycles pastimes, when Kansa orders him to come to Mathura, the Lord goes there mounted upon Kalia. Long ago, Garuda used to come to Nagale and kill many snakes, and some for food, and some he killed needlessly. Vasuki approached Lord Brahma, who then arranged that twice a month on the half moon day, one snake would be offered to Garuda, who in return would not harm any of the other serpents. However, the arrogant Kalia, who was the son of Kadru, began to eat all of the offerings before Garuda would come to claim them. When Garuda came to hear about this, he became very angry. Desiring to kill Kalia, he rushed at the serpent with tremendous speed. As Garuda fell upon him, Kalia, whose weapon is poison, raised his numerous heads to counterattack. While displaying his fangs and expanding his horrible eyes, Kalia bit Garuda. Then, as Garuda swiftly moved to repel the attack, he struck Kalia with his left wing, which shone like gold. This blow overpowered Kalia, who then took shelter in a lake adjoining the river Yamuna, for Garuda could not go there. Shaubri Muni was within the water of that lake, meditating, and he was sympathetic towards fish. Once Garuda came there to eat the fish, and so Shaubri requested him not to do so. Garuda agreed, but because he was very hungry, he carried off the leader of the fish. When Shaubri saw how all the fish had become unhappy because of this, he uttered the following curse, under the impression that he was mercifully acting for the benefit of the lake's residents. If Garuda ever comes to this lake again and eats the fish, he will immediately die. The results of this offense against a Vaishnava are described in the ninth canto. Only Kalia knew of this curse, and so, out of fear of Garuda, he went to live there. After chastising Kalia, Krishna came out of the water, covered with jewels and decorated with gold. When cowherd men saw Krishna, they immediately stood up as if rising from the dead. Filled with great joy, they hurriedly went and embraced Krishna. Indeed, even the dried up trees came back to life. Lord Balram also went and embraced his brother, and while doing so, he laughed, and knowing well Krishna's infallible potency, Balram placed Krishna upon his lap and looked at him again and again. All the Brahmanas went to Nanda Maharaj and said, "Your son was in the grips of Kaliya, but by the grace of Providence he is now safe. To assure that your son will always be free from danger, you should give charity to the Brahmanas." After hearing this, Nanda Maharaj gladly gave the Brahmanas gifts of cows and gold. When Mother Yashoda placed Krishna upon her lap, she cried constantly while repeatedly embracing him. Because all the inhabitants of Vrindavan were feeling very weak and hungry, they spent the night where they were lying down on the shore of Kalindi. Then, during the night, as all were sleeping, a great fire blazed up within the dry forest and surrounded them. Perhaps this fire was created by a friend of Kaliya's or servant of Kansa. Becoming scorched, everyone woke, and upon seeing the calamity, they took shelter of Krishna, saying, "Krishna, Krishna, O Lord of all opulence, O Ram, possessor of unlimited power, this terrible fire is about to devour us. Your devotees, please protect us, for we wish to never give up the shelter of your lotus feet." Upon seeing his devotees so disturbed, Sri Krishna immediately swallowed the terrible forest fire.